Welcome to Forged in the Fires podcast with Fireman Rob. Being a fireman, father, veteran, husband, world record holder, and Ironman, he brings stories of experience to impact your life while challenging you to live it. What do you want from your life? Why do you want it? Are you willing to go through the challenges to get there? If you have the courage to take that first step, let this podcast be the catalyst to start your fire while you bring the resilience to make it continue to burn. Our lives are made up of moments called right nows. So let's get started. Forged in the Fires podcast with your host, Fireman Rob, begins now.
We got the same blood, the same blood. Stay by your side, it's ride or die. We've got the same.
All right, welcome back to Forged in the Fires podcast. I'm your host, Fireman Rob. Today, I actually have an individual, 30 years in the FDNY. He has done everything from training. He started as a firefighter way back in 1992. I know some of my listeners are going to be like, what the hell? That was actually a year. But this individual talks on so many different levels to instill the knowledge that he's gained over those decades of firefighting. Being in the training office in the FDNY, it's so awesome to have on Frank Leeb. Thanks so much for joining me today.
Thanks for having me. Yeah, 1992.
That's crazy.
Long time ago. And I joined my volunteer department in 1983. I have 40 years in my
Holy cow.
department. So, yeah. Well, the volunteer department were able to join as a junior firefighter. At the time, 14. Now I think they could join at 12 years old. So,
are you serious?
They weren't burning buildings necessarily, unless they were training fires at that age. But
Wow.
not until 17. But yeah, I've been involved with the fire service for any of my memories are involved with the fire service.
And it hasn't changed at all, right?
Oh no, my goodness. I love the fire service. It'll love you back. It's there's times where it won't, but
Yeah.
You get in what you put out. You get back
love
with
that.
it, right? And it's so true. I tell people all the time, the people that are in departments with poor leadership or challenges, and I say, just keep loving the job, man. It'll love you. It'll always love you back.
So true.
I'm blessed in my career. I just, I got no regrets.
That's awesome. And I love how you started way back when. And I actually want to go back to your older brother. When you were 7 years old, he started on the fire department, and that started your going into the firehouse and really engaging in there. Tell me more about what was that have your older brother kind of lead you into that environment?
Yeah, and thank you for bringing up my brother. I miss him terribly. He passed away when he was 36 years old. And
Man.
when I was 7 years old, he joined the East Farmingdale Volunteer Fire Department, our local community. That's where I'm a member of that department today. And
that's awesome.
he just a mentor to me, and so many of the members that I met, that I still know today. Right, they're like 40 years. They're family. You know longer than so many other people in your life, and the impact that has had. And he taught me loyalty, taught me family, taught me the values of teamwork on the fire ground, and just so many things. And he just loved bringing me up to the firehouse and being being involved. He was 10 years older than me, so it was a good age difference for everything, right? Whether we were playing sports or doing something,
Right.
He was always there for me.
That's huge. And then you've transitioned that to your family, with your son, your daughter. How does that transition from, feeling that older brother of that family and then being in the fire service and then having your own family? How does it differ, or how is it similar, the family at the firehouse as to the family at home?
That's a great question. So it's all about family, right? And work-life balance. I was talking to some people last night, and sometimes it's not work-life balance. Sometimes it's work-life integration. That
I love that.
Our goals, work-wise, don't always align with our goals in our family life, and that has that impacts our family life in so many different ways. When we, when we don't spend the right time cultivating our home life, and we get out of balance. So there's the similarities. I mean, they're a family. Whether you're family at home or family in the firehouse, you're loyal to them. You love them. You do all you can to protect them. And you also have your fair share of disagreements. But you find the ways to move past them and benefit the common good, right, or the family. And
yeah, completely.
That's what ensures the continuation of the fire service as we know it. Because when we talk about the fire service, I tell people, because they're like, the fire service needs you, or it needs so and so, or it needs. I said, you know what? Guess what? The fire service doesn't need me. It doesn't need you. It doesn't need any of us. What it does need is someone who cares the same way we do. And
I love that.
The fire service, the FDNY has existed for more than 150 years. And it answered every single call before I got there. It'll answer every call after I leave there. And it had many great people before me that were into the job. And hey, we just build off of the shoulders of the giants that came before us.
That's huge. We're
just so fortunate to wear the patch today. But, after we leave, someone else will wear that patch, and they'll wear it with just as much pride. And they will move the profession further down the road than we ever even imagined or dreamed. And just like we've done that as good stewards of the FDNY and any other organization that you belong to, from the previous generations.
How does it feel like, because it's one of those that, I mean, I love what you just said, because it really speaks to that being part of something bigger than yourself and leaving that legacy better than where you found it. How does that translate to your career? I mean, 40 years in the service. How does that translate to what you're doing now? Instilling that knowledge, being able to be that person that says, hey, this is how we did it. This is how we've translated it. And this is maybe something that happened that we can do better.
Yeah. And another great point. And it's all about, like you said, leave the organization better than you found it, but also remember and think about, as a young firefighter, what drove you to be what you are, what molded you, right? So in the FDNY, we are so blessed. I have so many great mentors. When somebody says, who's had the greatest impact on your career? So certainly my parents and my family, they always, because of they're there with you every single day, right? So the impact there. But when you talk about the people in the fire service, there's so many that that that's like asking which of your children is your favorite. Like
you're my favorite that was born in this year.
I would need a couple of pages to write them all down, and then I'd still probably miss a few. But that's ingrained in the DNA of the FDNY firefighter, that you mentor the next generation, and we get the next generation ready to be leaders, ready to be senior firefighters, ready to have a fulfilling career, that they leave as healthy as they were when they joined, which is another big challenge.
Right.
All of that, right? There's so much when you peel back this onion. There's so many different things. But I'm at the point in my career, coming up on 31 years in the FDNY, and I look at the stuff I did as a young firefighter, and I try and give back in any way I can to make it better. Our internal magazine, WMYF, I'm coming up on, I've written many articles for that publication. I'm closing in on 30 articles I've written. And,
wow.
And so that's done by the FDNY Foundation, puts out that book for us. They've put it out. It's been put out for since like the 1940s. And
holy cow. Wow.
And I have almost every copy, and I read them, and I've always read them and learned so much from that. So my So my ability to be able to influence and teach firefighters about a topic that may not be defined in our procedures, I'm blessed to have the opportunity to be able to do that and follow in the footsteps of those that I looked up to, and I've read their work, for decades.
You touched on a point, and like you said, something outside of the normal. This new culture. It's not even a new culture, I should say. It's just an adaptation of the wellness. Because you said, being able to retire healthy in so many different ways. How have you seen that change from when you started in 92? Because I started in 2000. So I maybe have more gray hair than you. But what have you seen for that wellness change initiative, especially now that you're a chief? What has that change been for making sure that retirement is a healthy retirement for those individuals?
Yeah. So obviously injuries are somewhat part of our job, right? Minimizing them is, physical injuries, right. And trying to minimize those, right? Be better, evaluate what we do on the fire ground after action reviews and stuff, which we do often to kind of track the small failures, right? Be a high reliable organization that looks at the holistic approach, everything, and says, okay, what can we do better to prevent injuries? So that's how you work towards reducing injuries on the fire ground, right? Close calls, do an evaluation of close calls, because when you analyze and evaluate close calls, they prevent line of duty evaluations, because you lose less firefighters when you know what's injuring and killing firefighters, and you teach that. That's the value of, say, the secret list and what others are doing. And the FDNY, we put out and do close call investigations when staffing and time permits.
I want to ask you a quick question on that. Just on close call evaluations, how hard is it for the individuals that were there? That it's you make mistakes in your career. I've done it numerous times. How hard is it for those individuals to have been to that point of seeing possibly the fruition of not making it out, to now trying to adapt what they're doing or even talk about it? How hard is that? Because I think a lot of people don't understand. They say, "Oh, that's another close call article," or how hard is it to actually?
Well, the next fire I go to that everything goes right will be the first fire I go to. That
exactly.
Right. So we have to understand that, right? We're making decisions in real time with often incomplete or inaccurate information. So it's a challenge that will never go away. But we can distill and define that to say, what can we do better? But when we interview people that were involved in a close call, right? That person's alive to talk and tell us about it. So we can gain more out of that because it was a close call. Right. And that's the value of that. So our members are very willing to speak about close call. And it's easier to discuss it with them because we didn't lose a brother or sister firefighter.
Right.
Right. And when we lose somebody, those investigations have that added challenge, right? Because we're all mourning the loss of our brother or sister, but we must learn or reinforce lessons from that, right? I mean, because that's what, if they could tell us what they want us to do, they would tell us, evaluate this and change based on, I lost my life on that. Now you should look at that in a critical fashion and make sure that we, that if there's anything that we can adjust, that we actually do that. So that's why the close calls are so important, because we have the people to speak to and to make sure that it doesn't happen. But you don't want it to become just background noise, which we don't. We make sure that our members are mindful of it. A lot of times we'll take stuff that we put in those documents and it'll wind up in our procedures. So it doesn't just become a one-off lesson that, hey, I remember reading about that, but nothing ever came of it.
Right. No,
You know,
I totally, and that, I know I'm getting away from that, my original question, but this is kind of how it happens. Because but I love this kind of conversation about this, because I think it's so valuable, even outside of the fire service, because a lot of people in businesses and things like that are scared to admit their failures, or scared to admit their mistakes. And talking with you, these are life and death mistakes for us in the fire service.
Yeah, and it's hard, right? Nobody wants to be wrong or make a mistake, right? That's not the. Also, we have incredible pride. We have pride in what we do, pride in our profession, and but we also recognize that that's how we get better, right? From failures, we get better, and from tracking those close calls, we get better without a catastrophic failure. And lessons learned in other places don't need to be repeated lessons in New York City, or if New York City learns a lesson and we share the lesson, there's no reason for that to be repeated. Especially, it's heartbreaking when you see firefighters die in a line of duty, and it's a repeat of a previous line of duty where the situation is almost identical. And, so unpredictable actions and unpredictable events happen on the fire ground. I understand that. But sometimes there's just so many similarities that it's like we could have, somewhere along the line, we got to
the communication
learning process so we don't repeat the lessons learned and lose firefighters multiple times. I lose sleep over that. I lose sleep over losing firefighters. I lose sleep over when firefighters are lost to similar causes multiple times. And I do with cancer right now. Right.
No, it's such there's so many different dynamics. And I think it's always interesting when you talk about wellness, or you talk about, mental health is a big one in the fire service, but there's so many different dynamics that go into it, because every single person has comes to work, for mine, it's 24 hours, for others, it's 12, whatever it is. And then they go home. And so everybody's dynamic is different. How, as a training officer, did you start to instill in those younger probies that understanding that, hey, what works for them might not work for you, but make sure that you take some of everybody's solutions to be able to find your own unique solution?
Yeah, well, and the greatest example of that, right, with the newer firefighters is that they learn differently than we do, right?
True.
Today's firefighters may not want to read the book. They want to hear the YouTube condensed version of it, or they go on Quizlet, or they have whatever notes.
What was that last one?
Quizlet? Yeah, which
I'm old.
I first heard about it from my son, and then I run things by my son. He's in his 20s now, and he's like, yeah, Dad, that's what all the kids are doing now.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah, they only buy textbooks that they have to buy. I'm like, all right. So the way of learning is different. They're on their phone. So you gotta meet them there. So it's not the new generation's job to conform to the way we teach. It's up to us to conform to the way the new firefighters learn.
Oh, wait a second, Frank, say that again, because I think that is the most important thing for anybody that is an instructor.
Yeah. So it's not up to the new probies to adapt to the way we teach. It's up to us to adapt to the way they learn.
Oh, I love that.
And that's, because the last generation. So guess what? When I came on the job, the older firefighters thought my generation sucks, right? And
they told you.
Generation, right? Now firefighters with my time is saying this generation, they suck or whatever, right? And they learn differently. They have unique talents that we need to tap into, and we can't expect them to conform to our older style teaching methods. Death by PowerPoint is not what they like. They like interactive. I mean, we just, at the FDNY Fire Academy, There's a gentleman, Bud Henkels out of Philadelphia, who makes this absolutely incredible building prop. It's got everything on it. There's probably 400 teaching points on this prop.
Wow.
And I probably only know 200 of them. But, anytime I talk to him, it's amazing he tells me, oh yeah, and it also has this feature, or I'm building this into it now. So you could do a building construction lecture around this big prop. Right. And you're getting your firefighters out of the classroom, and into, out of that PowerPoint, and they're able to look at it and see, and you can explain, hey, in balloon frame construction, fire travels this way. This is the difference between this. Look at the header. Look at the ridge pole. Look at how, whatever it is, all these different things, new construction, showing that there's the solar panels and where the HVAC ducts are running in the dwelling, so you understand potential fire and smoke travel. There's just so much that you can teach in that. And by showing them in real time, those are memorable lessons. So our probies, getting back to how they learn, so they're tech natives, right? They have come into a generation that they have always had an iPhone, right?
Right.
The iPhone was first released in 2007, right? So
I feel old, Frank. That's not nice. I feel old right along with you.
Yeah. So this generation has always seen that.
Yeah.
So we now give every probie gets a tablet, and
wow.
And so we currently have over 300 probies in there. So it's a lot of tablets. It's a lot of bandwidth. So during the pandemic, when we changed some of our training delivery methods, we needed to install a cell tower because we didn't have the bandwidth. And I'm like,
oh wow,
I have some great tech people that were working for me. I said, so how can we solve this problem of bandwidth? And jokingly, they're like, well, if we put a cell tower, so I said, all right, well, we need a cell tower. We're going to get a cell tower. So one of our guys that works with us, who's our project manager, this guy, Paul Soren, I put him on it. And 6 months later, we had a cell tower. So
wow.
This guy, Paul, was like my enabler. I'd come up with an idea and I'd be like, Paul, can we do this? And he would later tell me, he's like, yeah, I really thought it would take us like 5 years to get the cell tower. But this guy doesn't tell me no. So I'd say, you're my enabler. And he would just have multiple projects. So having a project manager in a training division really helps us, because all those type of infrastructure issues they take care of, which makes me be able to focus 100% on our training. And now for us at our fire academy, Chuck Downey, he's the chief in charge of the fire academy, and he's doing an amazing job. Again, building on what I was doing and what others did before me there,
right.
Is what we do, right? And I still speak to him often. I spoke to him earlier today, in fact, and even though it was his day off, he took my call because that's kind of what we do.
You're always on.
But we're making, it's making the job better. But so to put a bow on that, it's all about meeting the probies where they are, how they learn, and you'll see it, because you'll see it in the grades, right?
Right.
You'll see it if they're getting failing grades, or a lot of people are getting failing grades. Well, then you're the one getting the failing grade.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah,
that's so true. So true. Now, when you think, I want to transition into the Bronx Fire, because when I was listening to you speak, you did the opening for Firehouse in 2022, and you're talking about the Bronx Fire, and you said something so powerful, because I think this kind of goes hand in hand with that, different learning styles, different generations, but it's all on mindset. And I think it was 17 died in that fire. But the better part of what you said was over 100 saves, more than 30 had cardiac arrest, but FDNY, you guys were there for that, and more than 60 transported. How do you instill that mindset of looking at it like that instead of looking at the headline that said 17 perished?
Yeah. So, and believe me, we are well aware of the headline, right? Because we knew how many had passed away while we were still on scene, and it's incomprehensible because right, a firefighter is impacted when we lose one firefighter. We don't want to lose any civilians, right? We don't want to lose any firefighters. We don't want to lose any civilians, ideally. So when we lose 17, we feel like we've lost. But in the FDNY, so we have a winning mindset. Our winning mindset is we play to win on every run, every tour, every day of our entire career. Losing's not an option. And so when you lose civilians at a fire scene, especially when you lose such a staggering amount, that winning mindset is almost translated where you feel like we lost because we didn't save those 17 people. So for me, as the as one of the incident commanders at that fire, I was feeling feeling what I could see on my firefighters' faces. Right, you should always be part of your size up as an incident commander is evaluating your people. Are they able to function? Are they able to do the job? Is it, are they overheating? Whatever it is, and part of it is looking at them and realizing that they were hurting, and watching them pack the hose back up onto the rig. We always do it as a team. No one's told to go and pack the hose. Everybody just goes and you 30
unspoken
on the hose line. And I took a picture of that. I take a lot of pictures after the fire for training purposes. And their look was what I was feeling. They were silent. Normally that's when they talk about their family, they talk about fire, sports, whatever's going on. They talk, rehash that fire. They were silent. And they just had a stare. And I'm thinking, I'm incredibly proud of what they did. I just had a ringside seat for one of the most horrific incidents that I've ever responded to in my career. And so did they. They were doing it, right, inside and outside the building. As I'm watching more than 30 people have CPR performed on them.
Wow.
But I know, because in the FDNY, we train. We train for the possible and we train for the inevitable, because we know it's not a matter of if, it's a matter of when. So our dedication to training, to teamwork, to mentorship, to being ready for the next run is generations in the making, not just decades, generations in the making. And our ability to save lives is highly dependent on that ability to rely on one another on the fire ground, to rely on your training, to know that you're just as good as I am, that you're ready to perform. It must never be because you're not ready. It must never be because you weren't trained. And here's the greatest example I give of that. In the American Fire Service, or anywhere in the world, right? What is the chances of you being fortunate or blessed enough to go to a fire and save a life, to pull somebody out of a burning building?
They can't.
It's not that high.
No.
Right? I've been fortunate in my career that I have, but if I ask a group of 100 firefighters, at least 75 of them are going to say they've never had that. They've never been fortunate enough to be in a situation, because the building could be unoccupied when you get there. There's so many different things, right? We don't have control of some of those things.
Right.
But yet we train on removing victims all the time, even though most of us will never have that opportunity. And that's because we have to be ready on game day.
I love it.
Right? It's about those that we're sworn to protect, that we're coming for. And if you're not, and we must demand that our people are ready. So it must never be about a lack of preparation and a lack of training. Because could you imagine on game day if you're not ready to perform?
Oh, no. Yeah, well, that's when that line of duty death doesn't help.
Yeah, because you know it, right? You know it. You could fool the spectators, but you can't fool the players. If I had an opportunity to save a life, there was someone in the building and I didn't get them out, I know that. I wouldn't need anybody to tell me that. Just like I know my failures on the fire ground. When I make a mistake, I know it. And I evaluate every incident that I go to. We're fortunate. We record all of our handy-talkie transmissions, and I'll review them after a fire. They're automatically sent to me.
Right.
and you'll be like, oh, I didn't hear that transmission, or I wish I would have. If I would have known that sooner, I would have. I would have stretched the line a little bit sooner to a different location or whatever, right? So it's that continual desire, that hunger to be better, the next time.
And I can hear it in your voice, and I love it's pride. It's pride in yourself. It's pride in the people next to you, and it's a pride in the department. How proud of you, or how proud are you of, the people around you and of yourself for the career that you've had, for the citizens of New York? Can you instill that into words even?
I'll tell you what, it is. No, I can't, but I'm going to give it a try. Right. So,
right.
I love New York City. And I love being a New York City firefighter. I love my firefighters. I love how culturally we are into training and dedication, teamwork, loyalty. So these are all, by the way, important leadership traits, right? So they're instilled in you at such a young age, at such a young time in your career, that it's about being better. And I'm proud when I hear of a success on our job, as someone who's been into training for a very long time. I'm proud of those people, even if I don't know them, right? I'm proud of the successes of our organization, as are our retirees. So you retire from the FDNY, but you never leave the FDNY. You're always part of the FDNY family.
That's awesome.
Once you come in, you are always part of the family. And after some of the after the rope rescue last year right, where we put 4 people out on rope, and I had so many people, retirees, reach out to me just saying how proud they were of our job. And
that's awesome.
That never leaves you, right? From talking to many retirees, that never leaves you. And even the previous chiefs of training, Tom Galvin and Chief Mooney, Chief Richardson, guys that still to this day would, when I was there, would call me up and say, hey, tell me how you're doing this, or I would ask them a question, how they do something, to make sure that the organization is because it's about the organization and our people, right?
Right.
It's not about me, not about you, right? We discussed that. And that's what they do. When they made me the chief of safety back in December, I had 4 previous chiefs of safety reach out to me to ask they wanted to give me the insight that they thought was necessary. Like, how lucky am I that I belong to an organization where even the retirees still want to make the organization better. That's
unbelievable.
They're still mentoring me. Some of these guys I worked for early in my career in different capacities. And here they are still reaching out because they care deeply about the FDNY and the success of the FDNY, because it's about and our people, never about individual.
I love that. This conversation has got me reinvigorated. I appreciate it. You know what? We could probably talk for a few hours here. I love that you took the time to come on and all the knowledge that you've instilled. I want people to make sure that, there's a lot of great YouTube videos. Make sure you go and Google Chief Frank Leeb. Make sure you see all the opening ceremonies one. I love that. But make sure you go and view those. I always end my podcast with 3 questions. Are you ready, sir?
I am ready.
All right. If you could go back to your 18-year-old self, you've already been in the fire service for a long time. What would be a piece of advice that you give yourself?
Slow down. Enjoy the journey. It's going to be okay. Keep doing the things you are. Keep reading and learning about the fire service every day. Keep loving the fire service. Some of the lessons that I know now that I mentioned earlier, if you love the job, it'll love you back.
Yep.
And that means being ready. That means reading. That means, I mean, nowadays, right? You go on podcasts like this and others, and on YouTube, there's so many good videos and training opportunities to be engaged the way you need to be. So I would tell myself, do all of those. Make sure you take care of your mental and your physical health. Just some of the lessons learned, and that many things that I've done that have led to my successes.
Love it. If you a lot of people go through struggles and challenges. If you could give them 2 habits to make into their daily life to continue to move forward, what would those 2 habits be?
So the biggest is exercise. Do some type of exercise. Nothing relieves stress quite like exercise. And that could be simply walking and or riding a bike or whatever, or running, whatever it is that you're able to get to the gym, or you don't even need a gym. Just like I said, go for a walk, do something, and just be able to have you time. Maybe not be connected by your phone for that walk, or when you're exercising, unless you're just listening to music.
That's powerful. It's hard to have you time, especially when you're having struggles. I mean, I've been in that circumstance. I'm sure you've been there too. It's you time is good to be able to have a good conversation with yourself. Yeah,
it enables you to refocus and recenter yourself like few other things.
Oh yeah. Now here's going to be the fun question. So if you could have coffee at a firehouse table, so that no questions off the table, everybody's going to answer it.
Yep.
With 3 individuals that could be deceased or alive, who would those 3 be and why?
Yeah. So it's such a good question. Like all of you guessed, right? I can name a lot of different people.
Oh yeah.
And especially family. But so I'm going to give you 3 that are related just to the fire service.
Perfect.
Right. Because, this, depending on the topic, there's so many, right?
Oh yeah.
But first and foremost, I would love to have a conversation with my brother. Because there's so much that he missed of my career, and so many things that I want to ask him about and share with him. And through the years, so many times I've wanted to bounce something off of him or whatever, and he wasn't there for me to be able to do that. And
right.
He would be number 1 because he's the greatest impact on my fire service career.
I love that.
And all 3 of the people that I'm going to choose are all deceased, because in the fire service, the beauty of it is that if I want to speak to someone in the fire service that's alive, I could pick up the phone and I could, through somebody, I could speak to them. Right. So yesterday I spoke to Dan Majkowski from UL. I spoke to Denny Compton, who retired out of Mesa and is still very involved in the fire service. So you think about like the accessibility of people in the fire service that
it's a lot. It's good.
If there's someone you want to speak to in the fire service, don't wait until they're no longer with us to ask them questions. Reach out to them while they're here. So and I do that, right? And I might have a little more access because I'm coming from the FDNY, but I'm telling you, all of these people, everybody that's in the fire service will answer your email or reach out to you. I had lunch with Vinny Dunn last week, the week before, and nice. Talk about a fire service legend. So for those people, you got to grab the knowledge from them because they're amazing. So anyway, number 2, Alan Brunacini.
Oh yes, yeah.
I mean, just what he's done, what he did for the fire service, and just and I'd want to talk to him because there's so many different concepts that he had that I just when I attended his class and stuff, and I listened to a lot of his stuff on YouTube now. But I was young in my career when he was around, and I would have never went up to him and started talking to him. Unfortunately, right? I'm telling you,
that's the hard
don't
part.
Wait, right? Do that. You see these guys at conferences, you attend a conference because you see somebody is there that you want to speak to. Well, speak to them, right? I don't know anybody in the fire service that wouldn't speak to you, right? So definitely do that. Alan Brunacini, there's so much at this point in my career that I'd want to know more about and have some clarification on. And my third person, he passed away in December, and that's Bobby Halton.
Yeah, Bobby.
So I saw Chief Halton a couple of times in the before he passed away. In October, I saw him at the U.S. Fire Administrators Summit in Emmitsburg, Maryland. He was there.
Okay.
He was everywhere. He was
always, yeah. He was not. He was not hiding ever.
No, never. And so I saw him there, and I also saw him at the FDNY's battery symposium that we did. Listen, he was everywhere and just so engaged. And his editorial piece in November, he mentioned me in.
Cool.
It was like the last or the second to last editorial he did, and he mentioned me as a fire service leader. And
wow.
I had commented on the article. Someone had brought it to my attention. Actually, our chief of operations, John Esposito, had brought it to my attention, and he was like, "How cool is that you got such a nice mention?" But I never spoke to him in person about that. Like I said, that was November, and he passed away in December. And just to have one more great conversation with him about the fire service, there's so much. And if I had to pick a fourth, I'm bending your rules. I would pick Ray Downey. Yeah.
You can do that.
Yeah, I would pick Ray Downey. I was blessed to work for him when they formed the squads in the FDNY in 1998. So I worked under his command
No kidding.
when I was in Squad 270, and I was petrified of him.
I can imagine.
Because he was just a man of just an amazing stature. And I'm very good friends with two of his sons, Joe Downey and Chuck Downey, and they are amazing individuals. Joe is in charge of special operations, and Chuck is in charge of, like I mentioned earlier, the fire academy. And they're just great guys. But to have a conversation at this point in my career with Ray Downey, I feel like I worked under his command, but squandered opportunities. Never, to actually have conversations with him, because I was, you just didn't approach him as a at least this firefighter that wasn't going to approach him. So there's my four. I probably. And if you
That's a great table.
Up with two or three more.
That's a great table. I mean, that's icons, and like you're talking about that legacy of carrying it forward and having what you do in the fire service as well as outside of the fire service kind of translate to the future generations. I think it's so amazing to keep that alive, and it's so important.
Yeah, totally agree. Totally agree.
Love it. Well, hey, thank you so much for joining me. I appreciate it, because it was just a great episode. I appreciate it.
Thank you. I appreciate you having me on. We're all in this together.
Thanks for listening and supporting the Forged in the Fires podcast with Fireman Rob. Remember, don't forget to like and subscribe to this podcast, and please share this episode with a friend or family. To find out more about Fireman Rob or reach out about a question, go to www.firemanrob.com. Until next time, live your life forged in the fires.